Sometimes hearing the story behind a song can provide even greater meaning to it once we hear the lyrics again. And this is one of those songs for me. A woman named Renee wrote to me about the tragic loss of her daughter. And she said, "My story is one I wish I never had to tell, but somehow I've seen God at work in it." And she lost her daughter because of a drunk driver. A young man named Eric was behind the wheel of his car, drunk one night, struck her daughter's car, and killed two girls. Best friends that night lost their lives. Renee told me that young man was convicted of the crime. The judge and the jury sent him away to prison for 22 years sentence. But Renee said that while he was behind bars, she was the one who felt like the prisoner. And the reason for this is because she'd found herself in her darkest days. She was just bitter and angry and filled with so much hatred towards that young man who stole the life of her Megan. And she said that she had just reached a point where she realized she can't go on like this, and she just began to ask God to lead her out of that darkness. And what she didn't realize is that what God was about to do was to lead her to do the impossible, to forgive the young man who took the life of her daughter. She reached out to him in prison and said, "Eric, I forgive you, and I want you to know that God can forgive you too." Little did she know that God would change that young man's life in the process. He asked Jesus into his heart, began a new chapter in his life behind bars, and this forged an unlikely friendship between a young man, convicted criminal, and the woman whose daughter is no longer with us. And I'll tell you, it was just a powerful story to see how God can really bring something beautiful out of something so tragic. And I wanted to tell that story in greater detail, and that's why I wrote the book.
And there is a line, and I would not do it justice to attempt to quote it at this time, especially here in the midst of ICRS with all these people walking around. So I'm a little bit all over the place. But that last, it's near the end of the song about the person that really extends forgiveness is the one that receives forgiveness.
It says it'll clear the bitterness away. It can even set a prisoner free. Now, the reason why I wrote that line is because Renee went and stood in front of a judge and asked the judge to show mercy towards Eric, and the judge cut his sentence in half. So in this case, forgiveness literally has set a prisoner free. Eric is no longer behind bars. The lyric goes on to say, "There is no end to what its power can do. So let it go and be amazed by what you see through eyes of grace. The prisoner that it really frees is you."
That's incredible.
That's Renee's story, and there's two sides to that forgiveness story, and both of them are prisoners who've been set free.